Have you ever sat in silence after a phone call with your adult child and thought, what just happened? Maybe their tone was sharp. Maybe they dismissed your opinion, or made a snide comment, or rolled their eyes during a family dinner. And you stood there, stunned, not because you're weak, not because you don't have something to say, but because it hurts when the people you love most start treating you like your voice doesn't matter. If this has happened to you, you are not alone. Many parents reach a moment, especially after 60, when the dynamic with their children quietly begins to change. Not always for the better. They begin to feel overlooked, interrupted, shut out, disrespected, not in big, dramatic ways, but in those small, cutting ways that leave you questioning your worth. And often, we don't respond. We swallow it because we don't want to be dramatic. We don't want to cause a rift. We tell ourselves, they're just stressed, or it's not worth the argument, or maybe I'm too sensitive. And so we let it go again and again until one day you realize you've taught them that it's okay to speak to you like that. But here's what I want you to hear clearly, calmly, lovingly. You have every right to be respected, not because you're perfect, not because you've never made mistakes, but because you are a human being, a parent, a person, and that respect should not vanish with age. You don't need to yell to earn it. You don't need to guilt trip them or fight back. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is speak with a calm clarity that says, I will not accept being spoken to this way. Let me tell you about Margaret. Margaret is 71. Her daughter, Sophie, is in her 40s, a busy executive, 2 kids, a lot on her plate. Their conversations often feel rushed. One day, during a call, Margaret gently mentioned she felt a bit lonely lately. Sophie sighed loudly and snapped, Mom, I can't deal with this guilt trip right now. Okay, I'm doing the best I can. Margaret's heart sank. She hadn't meant to guilt her. She just wanted to be heard. She hung up the phone and cried quietly in her kitchen. Not because of the words, but because of how small they made her feel. But something shifted that day. Margaret sat down and wrote a sentence on a slip of paper. The next time Sophie raised her voice or dismissed her, she would simply say, I won't continue this conversation while I'm being spoken to this way. Not you're being rude. Not how dare you. Just calm, clear, no blame, no drama. And the next time it happened, she said it. Her voice trembled a little, but she said it. And then she stayed quiet. Sophie was surprised, thrown off. But something in the tone, something in that quiet boundary made her pause. She changed her tone. She listened. Because here's the truth. When you respond calmly and firmly, you shift the entire energy of the conversation. You stop playing the role they expect. You stop chasing respect and start embodying it. Another phrase that carries quiet strength came from Frank, a retired teacher and father of 3. Frank's son, Ryan, had a habit of joking at his expense, little jabs at family dinners, sarcastic comments about his memory or opinions. Everyone laughed. Frank didn't. One evening, when the jokes came again, Frank took a sip of his water, looked at his son gently, and said, I know you may not mean harm, but comments like that hurt me. And then he stopped. He didn't justify, he didn't argue. He just let it land. The table went quiet. For the first time, Ryan looked at his father not as the old man who always took the jokes, but as a man who had quietly reached his limit. And that's all it took. Because when you name the harm not with accusation, but with honesty, you remind people that you have a heart, that you have limits, that you are not made of stone. We live in a world that tells older people to be quiet, to be flexible, to keep the peace. But peace built on disrespect is not peace. It's silence. It's walking on eggshells in your own family. And maybe, like Helen, you've been there. Helen's daughter, Emily, often came over unannounced. She'd bring laundry, ask for help, let the kids run wild in the living room while she took calls in the kitchen. Helen never said a word until the day Emily told her, You're lucky we come around at all. Helen's heart dropped. That night, instead of crying, she practiced saying something out loud to her reflection. Just one sentence. Please don't speak to me like that. I deserve to be treated with kindness. not because she needed to win, but because she needed to stop losing herself. The next time something similar happened, she said it. Her voice wasn't loud, but it didn't need to be, because real strength doesn't shout. It simply refuses to shrink. If your children have fallen into the habit of treating you with casual disrespect, whether through tone, indifference, jokes, or impatience, you don't need to fix them. You don't need to lecture them. But you can change the conversation by how you show up. And it begins with a sentence. A simple, firm, calm sentence, spoken not in anger but in self-respect. Because every time you speak from your dignity, you remind them and yourself that you are still here, still valuable, still deserving of care. And sometimes, all it takes is a few powerful words to shift the weight of years. Sometimes, the hardest part isn't what they say. It's what you feel afterward. The heaviness in your chest, that quiet voice in your mind whispering, maybe I'm being too sensitive. Or worse, maybe I deserve that. It's a familiar loop. The more you give, the more you hope they'll notice. That they'll stop and say, thank you. Or even better, I see you. But when that moment never comes, it begins to wear you down. Slowly, quietly, like water dripping on stone. You tell yourself it's easier to say nothing, to go along, to not rock the boat. After all, you were raised in a time when respect for your elders was expected, but giving respect back to yourself, that was something many of us were never taught how to do. It's okay to admit it now. Sometimes we don't push back because we're afraid of what it might cost us. Margaret once said something that stayed with me. After years of being spoken over by her daughter Sophie, she told me, I kept quiet because I was scared she'd call less, that I'd lose her completely if I pushed too hard. And that fear is real. But let me ask you something. What do you really lose when you stay silent? What part of you shrinks each time you smile through the disrespect? What does it cost your spirit when you tell yourself, it's just easier this way? That shrinking, that fear, that silence, it doesn't make them love you more. It only teaches them that they don't have to change. But here's the truth no one says out loud. Standing up for yourself doesn't damage relationships, it deepens them. Because when your children begin to realize you are no longer afraid to name your needs, to draw your lines, to speak with clarity, something remarkable happens. They start listening, not always right away, not without resistance, but over time, your calm strength begins to shift something in them. Jack, a soft-spoken grandfather, had always been the peacemaker in his family. He bit his tongue constantly when his adult children fought, when they made decisions without consulting him, when they made offhanded jokes about how old-fashioned he was. But one day, during a family gathering, his son Caleb interrupted him mid-sentence again and rolled his eyes. Jack paused. Then, without anger, he simply said, when I'm spoken over, it makes me feel invisible, and I've lived too long to be invisible in my own family. It was quiet. No one said anything for a moment, but Caleb looked up. His face softened. That one sentence, spoken from calm self-respect, carried more weight than 100 arguments. Because there's a power in naming what's real without attacking. When you speak from clarity, not guilt, not fear, you create the space for real respect to grow. Another moment like this came from Helen. Her daughter Emily had gotten used to making snide remarks about Helen's memory, about her taste in clothes, about how she spent her time. Small jabs, but they added up until one day, while folding laundry together, Emily said, Mom, you wouldn't understand. This stuff is too complicated for your generation. Helen stopped folding. She looked at her daughter, not with anger, but with resolve and said, it may seem like a joke to you, but those kinds of comments feel disrespectful. I'd appreciate if you didn't speak to me that way. There was no shouting, no storming out, just a boundary. And for the first time, Emily didn't have a quick reply. She stood there in silence, processing it. It's in moments like this when we stop explaining, stop justifying, and simply state what we will and won't allow that we begin to rewrite the relationship. And let me be clear, this isn't about becoming cold or distant. This isn't about punishing your children or making them feel bad. This is about creating a space where love and respect can exist together. Because love without respect is not love at all. It's convenience. It's dependency. It's duty without warmth. You are allowed to ask for both. That's what Grace realized. After decades of bending over backward for her son, she finally said, "I want to help you, but not at the cost of being spoken to with impatience. My support comes with mutual respect." And something shifted, because when we frame our boundaries with love, not anger, we teach the people in our lives how to love us better. These calm phrases, they aren't magic spells, but they are invitations. Invitations for your children to grow, to reflect, to treat you as the equal adult that you are. And even if they don't change right away, even if they resist, you'll feel something vital return to you, your voice. And that voice, steady, gentle, unshaken, is what will guide you back to yourself. You don't need to convince them. You don't need to win. You only need to speak from the deep well of self-worth that has been waiting patiently inside you all along. And the moment you do, you'll feel it, the difference between keeping the peace and keeping your soul intact. There's a moment, and maybe you've already felt it, when something inside you simply stops waiting. Not out of bitterness, not from giving up, but from waking up. You stop waiting for the apology that never comes. You stop hoping they'll notice you're hurt. You stop measuring your worth by how often they call, or how sweetly they speak, or how much they seem to get it. And instead, you start noticing something far more important yourself. It's subtle. You might not even tell anyone, but inside, you feel a shift. The heaviness of hoping becomes the lightness of clarity. You realize, I don't have to convince anyone to respect me. That truth is where your power begins. Frank, the man who once quietly endured years of sarcasm from his adult children, began to change the moment he stopped laughing along, not angrily, not with lectures, but with silence. One day, at a family BBQ, his son made yet another joke at his expense. Everyone chuckled, but Frank didn't. He looked his son in the eye, not with shame, not with anger, and said, "That's not funny to me." Then he walked away to tend the grill. Not a big scene, just a small, clear message. I'm done performing for your approval. What happened next wasn't dramatic. No shouting, no apologies that day. But a week later, Frank's son called him not to ask for a favor, not to poke fun, just to talk. Because when you change your presence, people start to feel the difference, even if they don't have the words for it yet. They notice that you're no longer desperate to please, that you're no longer willing to shrink, that you've drawn a line not to push them away, but to protect your peace. This kind of change doesn't just affect how others treat you. It changes how you feel in your body. Your breath deepens. Your shoulders soften. Your chest stops holding so much tension. You start to enjoy your own company again. Helen, after speaking calmly to Emily about her sarcastic comments, noticed something new. She stopped dreading their conversations, because now she didn't show up trying to manage Emily's moods. She showed up as herself. And surprisingly, Emily slowly began to soften. She stopped the jokes. She started asking Helen for advice again. The walls they'd built out of unspoken resentment began to loosen, brick by brick. That's the unexpected beauty of calm boundaries. They don't build walls, they open doors. Doors to a different kind of relationship. Not one where you're always walking on eggshells, but one where you can actually breathe. Margaret, who once feared that setting limits would push Sophie away, found the opposite. After that one clear sentence, "I won't continue this conversation while I'm being spoken to this way," Sophie backed off. At first, she was cold, distant, but over time, she came back not just physically, but emotionally. The conversation became less hurried, more thoughtful. Margaret no longer felt like a burden trying to earn her daughter's time. She felt like a mother again. Because here's the secret no one tells you. People begin to treat you with reverence when you treat yourself with reverence. That's what Grace found too. She started spending her mornings journaling, not about what was wrong, but about what was returning. Her voice, her dignity, her calm, the parts of her that had been silenced under decades of being the nice one, the strong one, the dependable one. She started taking walks without her phone, going to the market just for herself. buying the good tea, lighting the candles even when no one was coming over. It may sound small, but it's not. Because that kind of living the quiet honoring of your own existence is magnetic. Her son noticed. One day he said, "Mom, you seem different lately. More grounded, happier." She just smiled. You see, respect doesn't have to be demanded. Sometimes it only needs to be modeled, not by preaching, but by the way you carry yourself, by the way you speak with clarity, by the way you no longer betray your needs just to keep the peace. And the beauty of this path is that it's not about being perfect. There will still be days when the old habits pull at you, when you want to shrink, when you want to say, "It's fine, even though it's not," but you'll notice it now. You'll pause. You'll hear that inner voice, the one that used to be drowned out by guilt, and this time, you'll listen to it. You'll say, "I deserve better than this." And slowly, without yelling, without begging, without demanding, your relationships will begin to mirror that truth. Not always perfectly, but honestly, more respectfully. And even if they don't, if the people around you still fail to rise to your level, you'll know, in your bones, that you did not fail yourself. You'll know that you stood your ground not to win, but to live with peace. You'll know that your life, your presence, your story has weight and you carry it now, not as a burden, but as a crown. You don't need to be loud to be heard. You only need to stand in the truth of who you are. That truth is what shifts the atmosphere. That truth is what invites real connection back in, not out of guilt, but out of mutual respect. And in that space, something beautiful begins to grow. If you've stayed with me until now, thank you, truly. Not just for watching this video, but for holding space for your own heart through it, for letting yourself feel the quiet ache that's been with you, maybe for years, and allowing it to be seen without shame. This isn't an easy subject. No one wants to admit that their own children, the people they raised, protected, and loved so deeply sometimes speak to them in ways that hurt. We don't want to appear fragile or bitter. We want to believe we've done enough. That love alone should have been enough. But here's the deeper truth. Love is only part of the picture. Respect is what allows love to be sustainable. Respect is what makes love feel safe. And you deserve both, always. There's no shame in wanting to be spoken to with kindness, in asking for space to share your thoughts without being dismissed, in desiring conversations where you're not walked over, joked about, or treated like an obligation. And if no one has told you lately, let me say it clearly now, you are not too much. You are not outdated, or irrelevant, or just being sensitive. You are wise. You are worthy. You are still here and your voice still matters. It matters not just because of what you've done in life, but because of who you are right now, in this very moment. You don't have to keep tiptoeing. You don't have to keep over-explaining. You don't have to carry the entire relationship on your shoulders just to keep the peace. If this video helped you find even one sentence to say in a moment when you feel small, then I'm grateful. That's all it takes sometimes. One calm phrase, one breath of clarity, one decision not to stay silent. And if you've already said something, if you've already begun reclaiming your space, then I hope you take a moment to recognize how powerful that is. It doesn't matter how late it feels. What matters is that you came back to yourself, that you spoke, not with anger, but with love for your own soul. And that love, it's contagious. Your children may not say it out loud, but when they see you stand calmly in your truth, they'll remember, even if they resist, even if they take time, deep down, they will feel it. And that feeling, that deep awareness that their parent still holds dignity, still holds strength, still holds grace, that is what will stay with them. And if you feel moved to share your experience, I'd love to hear from you. Has your relationship with your adult children changed over time? Have you ever found yourself shrinking in silence, or found the courage to speak up? What helped you? What's still hard? If you feel safe to do so, share in the comments. You never know who you might comfort with your story. You never know whose heart your words might reach. This space, this little corner of the internet, is meant to be a place where we hold one another gently, where we honor the hard truths and lift each other with softness, not shame, And if this message made you feel seen, if it reminded you of your voice, your strength, your stillness, I'd love for us to stay connected. Click subscribe so you don't have to walk this road alone. There's more to say, more to feel, more ways to rise together. You've carried so much, you've stayed quiet for so long. But now, you get to live differently, not from guilt, not from fear, but from quiet power. So take this moment, close your eyes, put your hand gently on your heart, and remind yourself, I don't need to be loud to be heard. I only need to speak my truth and honor it. You are not here to fade away. You are not here to be tolerated. You are here to live with dignity, to walk in peace, to be spoken to with the same kindness you've always given. You don't have to demand it. You just have to live like someone who expects it. And from this moment forward, let that be your new beginning.